Panesvara and myself will be speaking on the TOP Chandelier model, and I will just give background in terms of the research problem that we are faced with, and Panesvara will deal with more of the animation aspect. So, to begin with, where Siddhi Muni Prabhu left last week, when he was dealing with the growth barrier problem. Okay, so my slides. So it's not that the disagreements are only there, with modern science per se, but this phenomena is also seen over the last 1400 years and is well documented that there have been terms of reconciliation between both the Puranic and the Siddhantic description of cosmology. So initially, as it was the Siddhantas, uh, especially the people who follow the standard accommodation, they were taking Puranic cosmology a bit more secondary compared to what the Siddhanta said, especially because Siddhantic cosmology was something which was practically verified. But then, after them in around 15th century comes the Partapura school and many more to follow them, where the Puranic doctrine held the upper hand. And then we have, the other scholars who use different combinations of these techniques, explaining how there are different planes of realities. One is meant for practical mundane affairs. One has more of strategical aims. Some adopted exegetical strategies. And, they actually try to adjust and revise doctrine so that they conform to each other. But what is surprising, and this is a question actually posed by Christopher Monsky in one of his papers, where he says, why do the authors of the Siddhantas need to seek intellectual accommodation with the Puranas at all? If the science was practically useful, would that not be enough to guarantee the creation of a niche within the ecosphere of canonical literature? And it's exactly these types of questions that we are trying to tackle. And for that matter, what was interesting, and we studied many of these texts, not in detail, but at least in terms of their main content. Surprisingly, Shukdev Goswami is using more than 150 numericals to describe the whole cosmic aspect in the fifth canto. And none of them actually use mathematics as a common language to draw some parallels of how and where they are similar and where they are different. Why this was not done, I'm not very sure. But anyhow, we took this opportunity of tackling the problem, taking mathematics as the common language, which can actually resolve this apparent disagreements to quite a great extent. And for that, basically, uh, we have taken two approaches. So though Panesvara Prabhu has worked quite on Bhagavad cosmology and he has also produced some books on it, but I will be dealing with the mathematical exposition of Bhagavad cosmology, and Panesvara Prabhu is actually focusing on the Siddhanta aspect, so that both are taken care when we are going to present this in the TOP Chandelier in terms of the research problem. So what I did was I have taken these 12 commentators from practically all the Sampradayas and their commentaries, of course, taking Prabhupada's commentary as the primary commentary, and try to actually decipher mathematically what all this leads to. It is very interesting, in the letter, the famous quote and famous letter of Macaulay to the British Parliament regarding Indian education system, he exactly cites these passages from the Bhagavad Puran, or rather from the Puranic literature, which actually talk about all these different oceans of yogurt, ghee, and he says this is really imaginative. So, how interestingly, if you read this discourse of Priyavat Maharaj actually going around Mount Meru on the Bhumantal with his chariot, uh, he actually is tracing the path of the sun in the opposite direction. And this actually lends the first clue. If he's tracing the path of the sun, that means he should know the orbit of the sun. So the first question that we ask ourselves, does the Bhagavad actually give the orbit of the sun mathematically? And this is the first question that we try to tackle. And for that matter, actually, we have to go back to the third canto, which talks about the time units. And after tackling what the time units exactly are and the concept of yojanas, we move on to this problem. So this is just a set of results to give a comparison of what the values are. These are about 12 data points that we have taken and calculate the values from Srimad Bhagavatam and then the current accepted value in relation to the non-fixed cycles. This is for the perihelion, aphelion of the sun, the apparent axial tilt of the earth, the angle of the ecliptic, century of the sun and the earth orbit, width of the zodiac belt, declination of the north pole of rotation, that is for the sun, diameter of the earth, declination of the pole star, and the ecliptic bisecting the equator. So we can see that the result is quite close by. And I'm not going to the technical details of how these have been derived, but this is what we are trying to do actually, compare some data points that are deduced from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I can assure you that most of it is from Srila Prabhupada's commentary. I'm just using the Acharya's commentaries as a backup, because one of the interesting feedbacks that I get from reviewers is, why are you quoting a 21st century commentator? How do we, trust what his intentions are? Quite an unacademic type of review, but that's what the academia is currently. So most of it actually comes from Prabhupada's purports, but the Acharya's commentaries are used as backup there. And then, of course, we take the comparison of different planetary parameters vis-a-vis Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn in terms of their aphelion and perihelion, their apogee and perigee. So this is, how we actually are taking about 37 parameters that are deduced from Srimad Bhagavatam, comparing that vis-a-vis to what the modern scientists have to say. So now the whole idea is to give, to prove the point that the Bhagavad Puran provides a precise, empirical, verifiable description of astronomical phenomena in a geocentric framework, and not just a symbolic, allegorical, and religious description. It is able to mathematically, that's the whole emphasis, because previously it's usually the general line of mainstream Shastric argument that they use in terms of pramanas and different ways of gaining knowledge, and even Mimamsa to some extent to prove their point. But this is using mathematics that we are, trying to resolve the apparent differences between what the Puranas have to say and what the Siddhantas have to say. You can mathematically prove how the Bhagavad is actually talking about a spherical Earth, not a flat Earth. And prove mathematically how the prime meridian, both in the Siddhantas and in the Puranas, is actually passing through Jain. And of course, then what Prabhupada said about to prove the causes of day and night, seasons and eclipses, and all that parameters. So of course, it's not really a question of scientific outreach, but definitely the ramifications for the devotees are also quite interesting in the sense that they can appreciate the Bhagavad Purana's easy but eloquent and precise rendition of astronomical observations. Now, I say easy because, in one sense, it's an open secret. If you read Prabhupada's purports, they make it all the more simpler. Now, what Shukdev Goswami is doing is actually not using technical terms. He's just using simple comparative models to make people understand, because the Purana is for the general public. It's not like the Siddhantic text with detailed algorithms and technical terms. In that sense, it is easy, but it's eloquent and it's precise. Especially Shukdev Goswami, the way he weaves across the different coordinate systems to describe in the shortest possible time. It also gives you an idea how these shastras actually are an open secret. It is there, but it's still so much, hidden. Of course, for me, what has been really amazing in terms of studying this is Prabhupada's commentary in terms of how he gives the synonyms, the translations, and purports, how actually he's using all these three to accommodate as much as informations that the different acharyas are giving. So, in synonyms, he uses a certain term, but in translation, it is different. And in the purport, he explains it a different way. Actually, what he's doing is trying to give all possible perspective in the shortest possible way. And of course, the commentaries of the acharyas and the appreciation for Mahaprabhu's various pastimes, actually. Especially one of the pastimes that strikes me is when he says in terms of how Vallabhacharya is not following Sridhar Swami. And now it's not following Sridhar Swami in the sense, not that Vallabhacharya is saying something wrong, but he's just taking some other secondary meaning. But that also is quite useful. And of course, many other pastimes of Mahaprabhu's that I'm not going into there.
Prem,
So,
Gauranga,
yes.
The two of you have
Yes,
a lot of time
yes,
apart.
yes.
I just wondered if
yes.
you wanted to share.
Yeah, 1 minute more. Yeah, 1 minute more, and I'm done. So, basically, this was the academic research part. And in terms of the Chandelier, basically, we are working with the project consultants, Kushman and Wakefield. So, basically, we have to still figure out, we are, working on all the possibilities to have it as a complete physical structure or holographic projection or a hybrid. And of course, this is the survey and partnership overtake. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
That was really good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And now we pass on to Panesvara.
Yeah, I think I'm audible to all of you. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. And also thank you for allowing us to be part of the entire summer school. So taking forward from what Prem Gauranga has stated, so this is one of the famous letter which actually inspired us years back. As a result of that, we are making a little tiny effort to study and understand cosmology. So basically, Prabhupada wanted this, in addition to displaying the entire universe, these four things: the passing of day and night, the change in the phase of the moon, and the passing of seasons and eclipses. So here we have been seeing such kind of pictures that we are going to have all the spiritual and material universes depicting, starting from Shesha holding the Bhumandala all the way up to Goloka Vrindavan, Lord Krishna engaging in the eternal pastimes. So right now, I'm not focusing on all the details. I'm primarily focusing on these four things, which is the important section of this entire Chandelier model. As we study from Bhagavatam how Brahma, who appeared on top of the lotus, had divided the lotus into 14 divisions and created 14 planetary systems with many subdivisions. So among the 14, below the Bhumandala and the 7 lower planetary systems, and above the Dhruva, the 4 upper planetary systems, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, are stationary. And the intermediate portion, wherein I showed in the yellow background, we have this Bhuvarloka and Swargaloka, which actually talks about all the luminaries that we see in the outer space every night, which are under constant motion. So this part of the universe is dynamic, and remaining rest of the universe is static. So now we'll focus on only this part. In this, especially how by the relative motion of the planets with respect to constellations and zodiac signs, how we are able to understand these four phenomena from Srimad Bhagavatam. Though Srimad Bhagavatam presents the general understanding of planetary motions, but that itself suffices for us to understand these four things. For details, exact details about how these things are happening, we may need to take help of Siddhantic texts. So generally we may tend to hear outside people say that the Puranic texts and Siddhantic texts are contrary to each other, but we do not see any such contradictions. Instead, they are actually complementary to each other. By combining both, we will have the complete picture of the universe. So now let us try to examine one by one. with the help of some simple animation, I'm trying to present this. As you go to the top of the universe, when you look down, so how things are happening, we'll be trying to visualize. This is like we need to just kindly imagine yourself, you are somewhere here and looking downward, how things are happening. So that is what is being depicted in our pictures. So this is the entire Bhumandala consisting of 7 oceans, 7 dweepas surrounded by Loka, Manasutara, Loka, and other areas. The sun is said to be traveling in his chariot, which is located just above Manasutara mountain, by his daily motion around Mount Meru in the middle. We see how the entire Bhumandala experiences day and night. So one revolution of the sun is considered to be 1 day, which is 24 hours. And in the middle of this Bhumandala, we have Jambudipa. In the middle of that Jambudipa, a little on the southern side, we have Bharatakanda, which is our earth globe. So for the earth globe, the same motion of the sun, how it causes the day and night. Being it is spherical, in whichever side sun is there, that part of the earth globe is brightened, other part is darker. This is as simple as we study in the school. So now the same thing in a simulation. So here Srimad Bhagavatam explains the constellation wheel, which is superimposed upon the zodiac wheel, which is indicated in the Bhagavatam as Kala Chakragata, consisting of 12 Rashis, is acting at the prime mover, and it is carrying all the stars that are there in the outer space as well as the Navagrahas along with it. As a result of that, we have the planetary motion as we try to understand in our astronomy. So this simple simulation shows the daily motion of sun, how sun is starting from the eastern direction with reference to Indian continent, and then as it is going around, how at any given point of time, half of the earth globe is bright and other half is dark. So this particular motion of the sun explains as how day and night is happening. So here you can see the front view of the same thing. So then, but though apparently in the previous simulation, the Kala Chakra and sun are traveling together, it may appear like that, but it is not so. Srimad Bhagavatam explained that as Kala Chakra consisting of 12 Rashis and 27 constellations, 27 nakshatras, as it is going ahead, we see that the sun and moon are slowly lagging behind. By the time Kala Chakra completes one revolution, the sun would complete about 359 degrees out of 360, and the moon would complete 347 degrees. So the moon is ideally lagging behind by 13 degrees approximately, and the sun is lagging behind by 1 degree. So as it continues further and further, when by the time Kala Chakra completes 360 rounds, the sun would have completed 359 rounds and moon would have completed 347 rounds. This is just to explain the principle, but it is not exactly 1 degree. It is slightly less than 1 degree. As a result of that, we have as sun completes as the Kala Chakra completes 366 rounds, sun will complete 365 rounds. That's how we have 365 days in a year. So to that precision, Srimad Bhagavatam gives an idea. Same way, we can Bhagavatam tells about how other planets are lying behind with respect to Kala Chakra. The sun, Venus and Mercury are lying behind by 1 degree, moon 13 degrees, Mars 2/3 degree, Jupiter 1/12 degree, Saturn 1/30th degree, and Rahu Ketu, they are actually going ahead of Kala Chakra by 1/18th degree. These are per day basis. So we can have here per month and per year, same thing can be extended further. So this simple simulation shows how all the planets on a daily motion, they are going along with Kala Chakra, but on everyday basis, they are slightly lagging behind with respect to Kala Chakra. If we observe only on daily basis how much they are lagging behind over a period of 1 month or 1 year, we can see them in the next picture, in the next continuation of the simulation. For a period of 30 days, how it happens? As sun is moving from Mesha to Vrishabha, the moon actually makes one complete round, which takes about 30 days to move from one new moon day to other new moon day. Such kind of phenomena continues further. So in this animation, we can see Mars is trying to catch up with sun because it is slower, and Jupiter is much slower, Saturn is much slower, and here we can see Rahu Ketu are actually going ahead of Kala Chakra in due course of time. So like that, Bhagavatam explains about the planetary motion with respect to Kalachakra. So this zodiac wheel is actually in the background when we see sun starts moving from one Rashi to other Rashi. So then, seeing the same principle, how day after day, as the moon is lagging behind by 13 degrees with respect to Kalachakra or 12 degrees with respect to sun, because of the relative position of the moon with respect to sun, over a period of 1 month, we see the amount of the portion of the moon which is brightened by sun and which is visible to the people on the surface of the earth. So with respect to this circle, so whichever portion of the moon is inside this bigger circle is visible to the people on the earth. So whichever is outside we can't see. Here we can't see any bright portion of the moon. In a day or two we see little bit bright portion. It continues further after 8 days off, and after 15 days we see full bright portion of the moon and then gradually reduces. So this is how it happens. Here we can see this. This is from the top how it look like. This is from the front how it look like. So on the first day we could see little bit of the moon, and a day after we could see little bigger moon because of the relative position of the moon with respect to sun, and the day after we could see little bigger moon. So like that, over 8 days half the moon becomes visible. Over 15 days the full moon becomes visible. Another 7 days the moon reduces to half. Another 7.5 days the moon becomes again almost invisible. So this is how we can also understand, because of the relative motion, how the moon goes through the phases, different phases, new moon to full moon, and then reverse. And then the 23rd chapter of the 5th canto explains about the Kala Chakra, which is acting as a prime mover and the background. It is not actually completely flat. It is actually inclined. That inclination has been indicated while explaining the position of the 27 nakshatras with respect to the Shishimara system. So this entire Kala Chakra along with the Shishimara, since it is going in a circular fashion, as sun is moving from one Rashi to other Rashi, it gradually goes upward toward the north. And then another 6 months, it gradually comes downward. As a result of that, we have the sun going through the concept of Uttarayana, as it is going from Makara to Mithuna, and we also have Dakshinayana, as sun is traveling from Karaka to Dhanu. So this will help us explain the Uttarayana, Dakshinayana, and the change in seasons, etc. And Bhagavatam also says that, of course, other Puranas go into more details. As sun goes upward, because Dhruva is pulling towards him, the orbital radius becomes shortened. So that also helps us understand the perihelion and aphelion concept. So on an annual basis, this is the path of sun from January to April to July, then October and January. This is the general path of sun being indicated in the Bhagavatam by talking about the 3 distinct speeds of the sun. As a result of that, we can actually track the motion of the sun. So here, how this with this inclined wheel, the sun goes in that particular orbit and makes its Uttarayana Dakshinayana motion, which we can understand from this simulation. So this is like a daily motion of the Kala Chakra along with the sun, moon, and all the other planets are there. And now we'll see on the monthly basis how it happens. So this is like a front view, but inclined time wheel. This one. So now we select for 1 month. In that 1 month, what happens? So in that 1 month, the moon is going around, but while going around, it is actually going upward and coming downward, again coming to the middle. And sun is gradually going upward in a month period. So if you select in a year, it gradually goes upward and comes downward. This is the Uttarayana Dakshinayana motion of the sun with respect to Kala Chakra. These are the 3 distinct speeds which are given in the 5th canto, 21st chapter, verse number 10, 12, and 19, which helps us understand the changes that are happening. And then 24th chapter goes into details about the eclipse. This is the whole pastime. No, I'm not going into details. The Daivasura, they're coming together for a truce and then trying to extract the nectar. So during that, we have this Rahu coming in between sun and moon and drinking nectar. But Vishnu Purana says that along with Rahu, Ketu also there drinking nectar. So as a result of that, Ketu and Rahu became inimical to sun and moon, and they want to they always look for an opportunity to kind of exercise their anger upon sun and moon. Though from the modern understanding, we see that the solar eclipse and lunar eclipse happens due to the alignment of sun, moon, and earth in the same line. So, but from Puranic understanding, especially from Bhagavatam, we also have the intervention of Rahu or Ketu, one of the two. So once in a while, they come in between, as their orbit is said to be inside the orbit of the moon. So they also come in between and they try to exercise their free will by obstructing the sun rays and moon rays coming to us and influence us by their own evil character. As a result of that, traditionally, culturally, we kind of abstain from many things, so etc. So here we can see a simple animation. Over every 6 months, 6 lunar months actually, about 155 days, there is a possibility of eclipse. So that is the time the sun, moon, Rahu, or Ketu, and Earth, all the four come in the alignment. So which brings in the concept of eclipse happening. This thing. First eclipse, if it happens by Rahu, the next eclipse will happen by Ketu. This is about solar eclipse. The previous one was with Rahu, and the next one is with Ketu. So like that, the next eclipse will be because of Rahu. Sometimes when there is additional lunar month, in 2 subsequent months, there could be 2 partial eclipses because of the improper alignment. Maybe half the portion of the moon or sun is covered. As a result of that, we have only half eclipse. So now in the next simulation, we can see the lunar eclipse. Just the sun, solar eclipse is happening. In the lunar eclipse, the only difference is the moon goes on the other side, exactly opposite to that of sun. In solar eclipse, both sun and moon are on the same side. So which also again occurs after every 5 lunar months on every full moon day. So whenever that is occurring, we get to see that once due to Rahu and next time due to Ketu. So these are the basic details. Yeah, yes, sir. I'm done. These are the basic details which are there in the Bhagavatam, from which we can explain or we can understand and explain all these 4 phenomena. And based on these inputs, recently during Nityan Trayadashi, Cushman Wakefield has installed a simulation, a kind of prototype unit, which will show all these basic movement of the planets. So as of now, this is the current state of activity that are happening in the TOVP. As time progresses, more and more things will be revealed. So these are some of the points from my side. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That was excellent. Very, very interesting analysis. Very, very helpful. There's one question which I think Prem Gauranga has elected to answer. Do we really conclude radius of sun's orbit as about 93 million miles from the Srimad Bhagavatam? He says.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, because the general concept. Yeah, the general understanding is that they take the length of the axle that has been given exactly at the for the radius of the sun, but that's not the case because there's a concept of Rathanida, that is the chariot of the sun. So it's not equivalent to the axle length, but it's you have to minus the dimensions of the interiors of the Rathanida. That's how you get 93. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.